All right, boom. What's happening, folks? I'm back at it. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your energy. Like I always say, like, subscribe. Most importantly, share this information if it's something that is beneficial and helps you. So, with that being said, this video is about the law of correspondence. Okay. Now, what is correspondence? What is the law of correspondence, and what does that entail exactly? Now, for the most part, what the law of correspondence is describing is that underlying link between the inside and the outside, the underlying link that is between above and below, the underlying link that is between the ethereal and the material plane. What a lot of us forget, a lot of us, I think at the end of the day, we do know this subconsciously. We do know this in the back of our minds, but we tend to forget the idea that what we feel, what we think, is what our reality will become. And what will affect us the most is how we think inside. What affects us the most is how we perceive inside, because that is what creates our reality ultimately. And when I say that, I'm saying that in that aspect as human beings, but then also this is why these are the universal laws of nature, because nature has been telling us so. Whether it is spiritually, whether it is environmentally, whether it is geographically, you name it, in every aspect, in every way of nature, it is constantly demanding and reminding us the fact that all of this is interwoven through the fabric of existence, right? Through the fabric of identity. Now, when I say this, I'm saying that in the sense of this, that if you feel dark, when I say dark, if you feel mean, if you feel unhappy, more than likely that is what you will exude. If you feel happy, if you feel optimistic, right? If you feel respectful, then more than likely that is what you will exude. So a lot of times when you see people who are assholes, right, who treat people bad, is because that's more than likely what they feel inside. When you see somebody who tries to overcompensate in regards to who they are, maybe they're overconfident, right? Or maybe they're a bully. You know what I'm saying? Like, for example, the president. You can see how belligerent he gets with women, right? You can see how argumentative he gets when somebody questions something that he says or something that he said before. Now, when someone acts that way, it's because that's what they feel inside. When someone acts in a belligerent and argumentative manner, it's because there is a certain level of inadequacy that they feel within themselves. So the only way that they can compensate that is to over exaggerate, right? Is to overindulge, is to lie big, is to yell, to be aggressive. It's because inside they feel scared. You know what I mean? So instead of showing that fear, what they will do is they will compensate for that fear, and they will try to replace it with something that is the opposite, or at least shows that they're not scared, right? So then they act overly tough. So a lot of times when you see people that are tough, it's not that they're tough inside. It's that if anything, that they're scared inside. So then they gotta bark. They gotta bark louder than usual, louder than normal. So how you perceive is because of how you feel. And so in how you feel is how you will exude it to the world. Okay? The best example, let's start small. Let's start small. When it comes to nature, right? Because I like to base all these in a nature, in a naturalistic standpoint, and then we move on up to different ways that this affects us in our everyday life. So even in regards to nature, our constellations, right? You've heard of the zodiac, right? The zodiac is essentially, an astrological, celestial calendar, so to speak, right? It's the calendar of the stars. It is a calendar that shows and reflects how our solar system, our planets, how they react and affect everything that's around it, especially the world that we live within, right? So what's out there is affecting what's in here, right? Back to the law of correspondence, that what is in is out, what is out is in, as above, so below. So it's all interwoven. So, for example, we do understand that the zodiacs, right? Everyone has a sign, right? And that sign affects it affects who you are as a person. See, right? We've heard Geminis or split personalities, they hot and cold, right? That is because of the way the stars move. It affects who you are inside. What happens out there, it manifests and it modifies the person in here, okay? So we understand that everyone that has an astrological sign, when it comes to the zodiac, it is also assigned a feeling. It is assigned a behavior, right? Which is a personality that is inside. So those astrological coordinations are affecting who you are inside. So boom, that's one example. Another example is that as above, so below, right? What is above is exactly what we live down here. From the naturalistic way, the sky. A lot of times in the ancient times, it's more specifically in the Egyptian times, they would call the skies the celestial seas, right? What a bird does in the sky is exactly what a fish does in the water. You know what I'm saying? The bird swims in the sky the same way a fish flies in the water, right? Right? The bird that has wings, he flies in the sky, right? The fish that has fins that basically act like wings swims in the sea. The same action is taken whether you're in the sea or you're in the sky. Is this motion right here? That's the same motion, right? The same thing that bird does to move around in the sky is the same thing that fish does to move around in the sea. As above, so below. Okay, that is correspondence. That is the most basic way I can show you correspondence. Okay, and then another way that we do this is that we tend to name landmarks. We tend to name. We tend to personify a lot of things that are astrological, and we make them human here on the ground. For example, the constellation Virgo, right? We understand that the constellation Virgo is tied and associated with the Blessed Virgin Mary. And we understand that the symbol of the Virgin Mary is a V, right? Or an M, right? And a lot of times what's associated with that letter is a sheaf of wheat, right? And a sheaf of wheat, which is bread. Now, that constellation has been associated with, or the phrase house of bread has been associated with that constellation, Virgo, i.e. the sheaf of wheat, the virgin. And that house of bread, which is translated in, I think it's Hebrew, as Bethlehem. Oh, no, Jerusalem, right? Jerusalem is translated as the house of bread. So, no, it's not Jerusalem. It's Bethlehem. My mistake. It's Bethlehem. That is translated into the house of bread. My mistake. Bethlehem. So we understand that even the idea, the landmark, the place, Bethlehem, is actually something that's in the sky, the house of bread. And what the house of bread actually means is the house. The bread is in the bread is in the house, and the house is what is the different zodiac seasons, the different zodiac signs. You see what I'm saying? So there's 12 zodiac signs. So there's 12 houses, and wherever the sun is which house it's in, right? So the sun would be in the house of bread, which means that's August time, which is the time of the harvest, right? And when we understand what that means is the house of bread, the house of harvest, that means that is the time that things grow the best, right? So then we understand now that the sun is in the house of bread, which means the sun is in the zodiac of Virgo. That's what we understand. And that tells us down here that it is time to harvest. right? That tells us down here that the place of Bethlehem is because of the time of harvest. All of this is depicting what's going on down here, but we are getting it from up there. As above, so below. Just the very idea and the story of Jesus is about who? Or about what? Right? It is something that has been personified. Jesus, the light of the world. Well, what do we know that is the light of the world? It's the sun. Okay? We understand the fact that the sun is the light of the world. And the sun does what? The sun dies and does what? Rises again. Especially during the winter solstice, when it dies, when the sun drops the lowest ever in the whole year, right? And it drops so low that it supposedly dies for 3 days and rises again. Excuse me. And it rises. Excuse me. Drinking coffee. And when it rises back up, that's when we understand it as Jesus rising again, because what it's doing is personifying what the sun outside does for us, right? Because with the sun, we have life, right? With the sun, we have life. So all of these examples that I'm giving are things that happen in the sky, but then we personify and make them so down here also, okay? So the law of correspondence is something that is so interwoven that, like I said, that a lot of times we fail to understand that everything has a connection. Everything has a beginning. But in the sense of everything has a beginning, that means everything comes from somewhere, right? Because we do understand that essentially we are energy. And energy is not created and it doesn't end. So it's just constantly changes, if anything, right? If you cut off the electricity from your TV, it doesn't mean that you don't have any electricity anymore. You just cut it off to your TV. That electricity can still go anywhere else in your house. Even if they cut it off in your house, that electricity can still go anywhere else in the city or in the neighborhood, whatever it is. So it's the same way when it comes to the astrological to the material, the ethereal to the material, from what you feel inside to the outside, that there's always a connection. And if anything, it's just changing the way that it comes out, but most importantly, that it's gonna come out. So if you're somebody that is, that you've been through, maybe there's people that have been abused when they were younger, right? But then when they get older, that emotion, maybe they've been bottling up all this time, but then one day they snap, right? It's because that connection, no matter how much you try to bury it, it's always gonna be there. So what is inside will eventually come out. If somebody is a monster inside, eventually they will show that monster outside too. My pops used to tell me a long time ago, which, the older I get, the more I start realizing and remembering these lessons that he taught me. But he used to say, how you act in my house, right? How you treat your mother, how you treat your sister, how you treat your brother is how you would treat, for example, he would say, how you treat your mother is how you would treat other women out there. How you treat your sister is how you're going to treat girlfriends, right? How you treat your brother is how you treat male people that you associate with that you're not related with. How you treat me as your father is how you will treat authority figures outside of the house, right? So if you're disrespectful to your father, more than likely you won't respect authority outside the house. More than likely you're going to talk back to the judge. More than likely you're going to talk back to police. You're going to talk back to your boss. The way you treat your mother, more than likely, if you treat her with disrespect, you're going to treat, when you walk outside the house, you're going to treat other women with disrespect. You're going to talk back to them too. You're going to belittle them. So how you act inside is how you will act outside. And my pops used to tell me all the time that how you treat me, how you talk in this house, how you eat is how you're going to eat, is how you're going to act in public. So how you act in private, it will spill over to how you act in public, one way or another, which is basically the law of correspondence. What you do inside will reflect outside. You see what I'm saying? So let me look through my notes here, make sure I'm getting everything. So and then another thing too, you know, another cool little thing that when you look at, if you know, this idea of correspondence also relates to, you know, from micro to macro, right? From small to big, you know, the atomic makeup of atoms, right? When nucleus, protons, electrons, the way the nucleus is in the middle and the protons, the electrons surround it, is the same idea, is the same concept of the solar system, how the sun is our nucleus and the planets orbit around it. It is the same thing. But now the atoms is at a micro level, right? The solar system's at a macro level, but with the same symbolism, right? The same thing. Have you guys ever seen that twirl of wind, right? Of hurricanes and things like that? Have you ever seen that twirl when you see it on radar? It's that same twirl that you see on top of your head, right? Have you ever noticed that? Have you ever noticed the same oval shape of the North and South Pole of the Earth, right? How it comes up and then the North and South Pole are at the bottom and the South, which is the same idea as if you've ever seen an apple. It's the same look. It's the same look as what you would assume the world would be if you look at it as, you know, as an oval shaped with the North and South Pole. It's the same idea. Because these things, that's why for me, you know, it's hard for me to assume that we live on a flat earth and this and so forth when we understand the symmetry of a sphere, right? We understand that things like that it's a natural symmetry that comes within the earth. Like from, you know, from grapes to apples to a lot of things, watermelons, a lot of things, nothing shapes them that way. They naturally shape that way. And a lot of times you don't see like a misshaped orange, right? With a big old lump. It's always perfectly circled. It's always perfectly circled. That's the design, that's the way of correspondence of the world, whether the planet is that way, all the way to an apple, to an orange, to a grape, to a seed. To a seed. You know, these are the laws of correspondence, of that underlying link, that ethereal link, that spiritual link, that astrological link, the geographical link. These are the things that make it so. Let me go through my notes here, make sure I'm hitting everything. Let me make sure I'm hitting everything. Also, too, yes, all the way from you know, chemical energies that are found in the stars, right? They're the same chemical makeup and same combinations that are found within us, whether it's sulfur, carbon, magnesium, hydrogen. These are the same things that are within us that are in the stars, right? We understand that. Let me see what else. Make sure I'm not missing anything. So, you know, so the idea of there is being an above, a below, an inside and out. Like I said, it's something where we even have to look at it when it comes to you know, to racism, right, and violence. You know, a lot of times what you perpetuate is very telling on what you think, on how you think. For example, people who decided to enslave, you know, other people who decided to colonize other people who decided to take someone else's belongings for whatever reason, it tells you of the inadequacy, the insecurity, the lack of how they feel about what they have, right? If somebody is willing to consider themselves superior to someone else, is it because they genuinely are superior? Because any type of you don't have to prove that, right? You don't have to bully someone to know that you can whoop their ass. But if you bully somebody, who are you reminding that you can whoop their ass? Right? Who are you reminding when you take somebody's stuff, knowing very well that you didn't work for it, that that you took it by force, that you took it by violence? When things and when people, when we resort to that type of action, it is showing the inadequacies within that person that is performing that type of action, right? Somebody who is content with what they are and what they have, they don't go around stealing other people's shit, right? Somebody who works hard for what they have and they're proud to work hard for what they have, they don't enslave other people to go do it. So my point is that somebody who is content and understands what position they play in society, they don't have to cheat to get farther in society. They don't have to cheat. So if somebody cheats, they are implying that they feel inadequate. They are implying that they are scared to play fair. You understand what I'm saying? So for me, when I didn't understand racism, when I didn't understand colonization, when I didn't understand systematic oppression and systematic racism, I just thought, it's just people just being assholes. But yes, it is people being assholes. But what's more telling than that is that it's people who know they can't do it the right way. They can't do it the normal way, so they have to cheat. Right? It's people who know that they're not adequate, so they have to enforce that they are superior. Someone who's lazy is going to make someone else do the work. That, to me, is not genius. Making people work making people work based on fear and violence, that's not genius. That's barbarism. That's barbarism. That's saying I can't do it, so I'm going to make you do it. There's nothing genius about that. So even in that aspect, you see through the law of correspondence that sometimes the one that acts like they're superior, sometimes the one that thinks they're smart, they're actually showing you that they're the dumbest motherfuckers around. That they are the weakest motherfucker around. That's why they try their best to portray such a strong facade. That is the law of correspondence. And so what you put out always speaks to what is within. How you act always speaks to how you feel. It always speaks to how you feel inside. So for someone or people, anything that always thinks that they're better, or have to cheat, they're telling you that they're scared to play fair. And they don't feel adequate enough to play fair. So the law of correspondence, it constantly speaks to me. And I hope that I've shown you enough examples so that it can speak to you too. And also too, like I said, is that because a lot of times, not even a lot of times, we all exhibit those type of attributes, right? Where sometimes we go too far. But then when we do that, and if somebody calls you out, look in the mirror. Why am I doing this? Where is it coming from? Right? Where is it coming from? Is it because of a lack of? Or do I have too much that I need to push back? Am I being too cocky? Why am I being too cocky? Is it because I'm actually that nervous? Right? Why was I being an asshole to that person? Is it because I don't like them? Why? We gotta start being able to see those underlying links to why we see things the way we see them, right? Why we look at the world the way we look at it. People, if we all didn't look at the world as bombs and nukes, and we have to understand that that correspondence, the idea of us knowing that you have to war to get your point across. If we look at it in regards to the law of correspondence, what is that saying about us inside? Right? What is that saying about us inside? Is that there is no compromise? Is that I have no patience to meet someone halfway? If I want something, I'm just gonna take it, right? So we have to understand that when the reason why we live in this world that we live in is because people don't feel adequate inside. That's why people want to start wars. That's why people want to take over some other shit, is because they don't feel like they have enough inside. So the more we understand that, right? The more we understand that it starts from within you and then pours out, the quicker that we can get to a place of content where you don't have to feel superior or inferior, right? You don't have to feel any other way than what you're supposed to feel based on how things actually are, right? So now, when I say that, I'm saying that if we want to change the world, right? If you want to make the world a better place, it starts with you individually. It starts with you individually, and then that feeling is then it's contagious, right? It carries on to the next person, right? It carries on all the way to the president or to the prime minister, to the king, to the queen of whatever country. And then when they feel adequate, when everyone is understanding the point, like, look, we ain't got to go fight. We don't have to throw nuclear bombs and hydrogen bombs, blah, blah, blah. That feeling can be contagious and move on to another country, where now both countries are not feeling a sense of inadequacy. They're not feeling a sense of insecurity. So then you don't exude levels of insecurity and inadequacy, because that's all war is. That's all war is. Somebody's feeling a level of inadequacy and insecurity. So then what do you just throw? You start killing each other. And then may the best man win. There's nothing, I don't want to say civil, there's nothing organized about war. It's barbarism. It's something that animals do, right? That's what, even animals don't really do that. Animals, for the most part, they eat when they're hungry, or if you cross their territory, which is pretty simple. Just don't go in my shit, and I won't feel threatened. And if I'm hungry, watch your back. So I feel like we're even worse than animals when we literally just go and take and destroy. And it's only based on how I feel inside, whether it's a feeling of superiority or just downright hate. So we have to understand that these laws are so imperative in regards to who we are and how we look at the world and how we perceive the world within it, right? And all living organisms within it. We have to understand that fact. How you feel inside is how you will treat the world. If you have nothing but anger in your heart, then you will always display and exude nothing but anger towards the world. It's just that simple. It's that simple. And how the world is will always affect you. How the world is will always affect you. Your environment, right? How you come up. If you come up in an impoverished neighborhood, the outside, after a while, will start affecting who you are, how you feel, how you react, how you use your critical thinking, so on and so forth. These things correspond. They correspond with who you are. They correspond with who you are. There was always an underlying link between your spiritual and your material, your ethereal, your material, your astrological, your material. plane, that is. There was always going to be an underlying link. So understand that the quicker, what's his face? Michael Jackson, remember he had that one song, Man in the Mirror. You know? What are the lyrics to that? I'm going to start with the man in the mirror. I'm asking him to change his ways. No matter the lesson, or something, no matter the lesson, it can be only clearer. If you want to make a change, you got to look at the man in the mirror, right? You got to look at the man in the mirror. You got to start with you. So what is inside will be out. What is outside will be in. And what is above will be below. The same way what is below will be above. That is the law of correspondence. Thank you for your time. I appreciate y'all. I'll see y'all on the next one. Peace.